Over 7,000 large companies, publicly traded companies around the world have found themselves in a very desperate situation. They are drowning in debt and they can no longer pay that debt. Simply the interest is more than they can bear. Again, this is 7,000 publicly traded companies, large companies all over the world. This isn't accounting for the small mom and pops that have taken out debt in the last couple of years that find themselves in very dire times. And that all of these companies are finding less customers, more expensive ways to produce their goods or services and get them in front of customers. And again, the customers either aren't there or they're spending less. Now, this story was shared with me, was given to me by my buddy Johnny Bravo. And he said, get this information out. It needs to get out. And you're a lot faster than me. So let's talk about this. And I want to stress as you think about this story or listen to this story, think about what you're doing to be prepared, not only to weather this storm that is already here on our shores, yet the mass media has not told you the facts, how big of a deal it is, as massive, big billionaires are getting out of the stock market. It's very well known because it's recorded. What are you doing to get ready for this? All right. And I want you to be one of the people that are prepared, not scared. Also, I'm going to drop an 80% off link to the Mortgage Master Pro if you want to be one of those people that can walk into a bank because you're ready and you knew the steps to get ready to where a bank will go. Well, how much do you want and when do you want it? Okay. When this happens, when nobody else can get a mortgage and real estate prices are falling, if you want to be ready, there's an 80% off link down below. It says here that more than 7,000 companies globally employing 130 million people can't pay back loans and are drowning in debt per the Associated Press. Now, this story is out of unusualwhales.com. And again, that is the title of the story. When you think about how big this is, I want you to think of the 130 million people and think layoffs, looming layoffs. It says here, they are called zombie companies, so burdened with debt that they are barely surviving, just able to pay the interest on their loans. And often one bad business hit away from shutting down for good. An Associated Press analyst found that their numbers have surged to nearly 7,000 publicly traded companies worldwide, 2,000 of which are in the United States alone. These companies have been whiplashed by years of accumulating cheap debt, followed by persistent inflation that has pushed borrowing costs to decade highs. Now, many of these mostly small and mid-sized struggling companies could soon face their day of reckoning with due dates looming on hundreds of billions of dollars in loans they may not be able to repay. They're going to get crushed, said Valens Securities Managing Director Robert Spivney, referring to the weakest of these zombie companies. Investor Mark Spignal, known for betting against stocks before the last two crashes, added, the clock is ticking. Zombies are typically defined as companies that have failed to generate enough money from operations over the past 3 years to cover even the interest on their loans. The Associated Press analysts found that their numbers have jumped by a third or more over the past decade in countries like Australia, Canada, Japan, South Korea, and the United Kingdom, and also the United States. This includes companies like running Carnival Cruise Lines, JetBlue Airways, Wayfair, Peloton, Italy's Telecom Italia, and British soccer giant Manchester United. I want to give you a second to answer this question. What do all of those companies have in common? And the reason why it's important to understand this is because not only for you to understand where your investment where you should be investing your money, because a lot of people have got their money in the S&P and certain indexes, and everything's great until it's not. And when more and more of these publicly traded companies come out and give you the truth that, hey, there's less customers, like Home Depot and Lowe's have said, the CEO of Bass Pro Shops coming out and saying the customers changed, they've shifted, they're not spending a lot of money, and the money they're spending, they're being very particular and they're being much more frugal. You see, we are in a recession, regardless of what the government tells you a recession is, and we've just seen the president of the United States change the definition of recession because they're trying to hide the facts from you. Everything is shifting. Now, what all those companies have in common is that you don't need them. You don't need to travel. You don't need to go to a soccer game. You don't need to deal with any of this. What these companies that you just listed have in common, you don't need them, and that's why they're hurting. And there's going to be more layoffs. If you thought that 2023 had a lot of layoffs, we haven't seen anything yet. And I believe the next 2 quarters, the third and fourth quarter of 2024, are going to see a lot of layoffs in the news. Now, it says, to be sure, the total number of companies has increased over the past decade, making comparisons difficult. However, when limiting the analysts to companies that existed a decade ago, the number of zombies has risen nearly 30%. These companies span various sectors, including utilities, food production, technology, healthcare, and obviously real estate. Again, are you ready for the real estate crash? Most people don't understand that during a real estate crash, it's not because real estate doesn't go down because people don't want to buy real estate. It goes down because there's fewer buyers and more sellers. And there's fewer buyers because more and more people have the inability to access other people's money, like banks, because they tighten their lending and they can't go and get these amazing deals. So sellers have to conform or they have to concede and they drop their prices and it turns into a snowball. That's why I want to prepare people. Look, this is the QR code. If it works, it'll bring you to the 80% off link. If you want that mortgage master course, it will line out. If you've never owned your first home, any home, or if you own multiple homes and you just want to refinance, you watch that course and I'll tell you what, this is my promise to you. If you within 14 days, you haven't watched more than 50%, you say, this isn't going to change my life and it's not going to save me thousands of dollars the next time I get a mortgage and tens of thousands of dollars over the next 5 years of that loan, whichever loan you get, I'll give you your money back. That's my promise to you. Now, diving back into the story, it says already the number of U.S. companies going bankrupt has reached a 14-year high, a surge typically expected in a recession. So we are seeing numbers that you are synonymous with recession because we are already there. The only question is, are you recessing in your spending? Are you preparing yourself and your household to not only weather this storm, because it is going to be a big storm, but to take advantage of it? That's what I want for you. I want you to charge the mount. How many of you sat back and were affected severely by the 2008 recession? Either you lost a job, you lost a home, or even you were cut back in hours and you didn't lose anything, but you weren't thriving like you were in the early 2000s. Well, what are you planning on doing now? Are you planning on sitting on the sidelines again and being affected by it? Or are you willing to take action right now and go crush it because you're ready for it? It says here, some experts believe zombie bank or zombies companies might avoid layoffs, sell-offs, or collapse if central banks cut interest rates, as the European Central Bank has started doing this week. However, scattered defaults and bankruptcies could still drag on the economy. Others think the pandemic temporarily inflated the ranks of zombies, and that impact will be short-lived. I completely agree with the latter here, and I want you to understand this. Any central bank that is lowering interest rates right now, as they are still dealing with inflation, are going to move into hyperinflation. And the Federal Reserve knows this. They may lower it 1 or 2 times, 25 basis points each, to give you the illusion everything's good right before the election. But then the real test comes, and that is what happens after this election. And I'm going to be honest with you. Type 10 if you agree. I think after this election, plug gets pulled on the economy, and it will come down worldwide. But I believe that plug gets pulled in the United States. So are you ready to take action and go crush it? Or are you ready to sit on the sidelines again and watch everybody? Hope you got something out of this. The Economic Ninja is out.